Women with Disabilities Victoria, empowering women. Primary prevention of violence against women with disabilities. Content warning. This video contains descriptions of violence and abuse towards women with disabilities. If you feel upset, support is available. Contact 1-800-RESPECT for confidential support on 1-800-737-732. 5 women with lived experience of disability and 1 ally face the camera. Each sit in a room with a grey backdrop and a brown rug on the floor. Swazik, gender and disability trainer and advocate. Carleen, experts by experience group member and advocate. Carly, lived experience disability advocate. Ashley, lived experience advocate. Tess, violence prevention trainer and advocate. Olivia, violence prevention worker and disability ally. Ableist Driver 1. Negative stereotypes about people with disabilities.
Women with disabilities are often infantilized. They're often treated as unproductive members of the community. They're not really expected to access higher education or even secondary level education. They're definitely not expected to get jobs, and they're also not really expected to enter into long-term relationships or start a family.
For women with disability, stereotyping happens all the time. People sometimes see us as childlike. They think we don't understand what's happening.
There was always assumptions made, oh, you won't be able to do sport. You won't be able to, participate in the, Eisteddfod. You won't be able to do anything else than be in a sheltered workshop. Like, I remember my education was not encouraged by particular teachers at school because they thought that I wouldn't amount to anything.
Ableist Driver 2. Accepting or normalising violence, disrespect and discrimination against people with disabilities.
Condoning of violence against women with disabilities can look like excusing violent behaviour. It can look like downplaying violent behaviour or shifting the blame away from the perpetrator to the person who's experiencing the violence.
I think perpetrators are often excused when violence is perpetrated against women with disabilities through the language that a lot of people use. Some of the things they might say might be,
it was just a bit of rough handling. He is actually a really good carer.
When I hear language like that used about my own community or other women with disabilities, it makes me so angry.
It gives permission for people to target people like us, like me, a woman with a disability.
We spend a lot of our lives as advocates building up and empowering these women, and then to have all that work undone with one word or a couple of words is just really frustrating.
Ableist Driver 3. Controlling people with disabilities' decision-making and limiting independence.
For a woman with a disability, if her finances are taken away, if her communication aids are taken away, and if transport is taken away, then it's harder for her to leave that violent relationship if she's in a violent relationship.
Quite often it's hard to get employment due to discrimination. And that's really frustrating because you know that you could do it, you know you got the qualifications.
as a woman with a disability, I am hard of hearing, and as a woman whose first language is not English, it was really hard for me to find a paid job in Australia. And it took me 14 months, over 150 job applications, and 13 interviews to find a job. The feedback I got, it was always that I didn't have enough experience to get the job. I couldn't understand that because I have a PhD and I have worked many years in NGOs.
Ableist driver 4. Social segregation and exclusion of people with disabilities.
When able-bodied people are encouraged to privilege their relationships with each other over their relationships with the women with disabilities, who could be their clients or family members or just people that they know, they are going to be more inclined then to turn an eye if they see violence occurring, or they might be more inclined to excuse the violence when they themselves are the ones perpetrating it.
The kids in my class would make fun of me and they would call me an alien. And it was painful to feel like I was the different one and not to be included into the groups. 20 years later, I realized that it was a way for those kids to gather together, to bond with each other by making fun of someone who has a disability. Sure, we can say they were kids, they were silly. But I'm afraid that this kind of stereotypes might have been internalized until they are adults. And we know that once you have internalized this kind of stereotype, a lifetime is not enough to get rid of them.
Well, we all know about the bro code or the locker room talk we often hear about that every woman faces.
I've had groups of schoolboys yell the most obscene things to me while their friends over there, about a few feet away, are just laughing and think it's hilarious. I'm in public, I've just been humiliated. Do I fight back? Because if I do, I know what will happen. They'll get their phones out and they'll film me. It's like I'm there for their entertainment because you know where it's going to go. It's going to go on social media.
The way I see it, I think that caused by peer pressure from men, or is it their insecurity of being a male, or is it their power over other people?
Take action.
Men in the positions of power must call out sexism.
I want people, especially people in public, but also in private spaces, to be active bystanders and step in and say it's not on. It's not right to be doing this. That why would you treat a woman with a disability so different to any other woman that you have in your life?
One of the things that able-bodied people can very easily do to challenge, for example, the condoning of violence against women is by thinking about the language that we use when we speak about women with disabilities and people with disabilities. So avoid that deficit language.
For women with disabilities, being part of the workforce means being empowered. It means being independent.
We need to give women with disabilities meaningful pathways to employment. So many of us live so far below the poverty line that it's very difficult for us to make meaningful change until we're on a level playing field economically and in an employment sense.
We need to stop overprotecting women with disabilities and allow us to take risks, take a chance, because we need to learn. And the more we learn, the more we get better at it.
People with disabilities have the right to speak up for themselves. Even if I don't understand you or ask you to repeat something, let me speak for myself.
I would like to see more women with disability in leadership roles, such as management, general managers, CEOs.
We have to teach our kids not to make fun of people with disabilities.
And this education needs to start young. It needs to start even at kindergarten. And it can start subtly and then build up through primary school education and then really come into it at high school. That this is not acceptable. If children are brought up knowing it's not acceptable, then they won't participate in it.
Prevention work is about society-wide, broad-scale change in the way that we as a community think and behave towards people with disabilities. So it's about changing people's attitudes, people's language, accessibility structures, all these kinds of factors that play into a woman with disabilities' experience of discrimination and ultimately drive the likelihood that she will experience violence.
I want to see positive generational change.
Women with Disabilities Victoria, empowering women. Thank you to the State Government of Victoria for making this video possible. For more information, please visit www.wgv.org.au. If you or someone you know needs support, you can ring 1-800-RESPECT for confidential support on 1-800-737-732.